What are the risks of running your own business? We're going to dive deep into that topic in this video. Okay, so the short answer about what are the risks, it's really time and money. That's what it comes down to. Because in the end, you're risking your money and all your time, and heck, time's limited on planet Earth. We've only got so much of it. So that's the short answer. But the actual things you have to really think about when you're going to start a business is how much money you're going to need to start that business. Because it's usually life-changing money if you're going to be starting something like a restaurant or any kind of a business that's a new trend or something where you have to buy a building or sign a lease agreement. I mean, usually in most businesses, you're talking about 6 or 7 figure type of money. So there's a lot at risk here. There's a lot at play to risk in opening up a business. These are the things you have to consider. Is it worth the risk? Usually when I get into a business, my first thought actually is not about how much money I'm going to make. It's how much risk is in that business. What kind of exposure do I have? What am I opening myself up to? Say I get into a business that involves mechanical work or something like that. Are my employees going to get injured a lot? Things like that. Are they going to be out? Am I going to have lawsuits? These are things you have to consider with business. Usually people see dollar signs. They say, oh my gosh, I have to get into that business because it's going to make a lot of money. And then they just focus on the fact that they could make a lot of money. But the risk side of things is the thing that you really have to think about, is you have to weigh the risk versus the reward. If the reward much outweighs the risks, then it's probably a good idea to go in that direction and potentially get into that business. But if the risk is like super high and you're like way up here and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much I can lose, maybe even your reputation, time, money, energy, reputation, damaging relationships, things like there's so many things you could lose. If the risks way outweigh the profits or the money you could make, it's not worth actually getting into that business. Maybe be a customer for that kind of a business, just go check out the person that was crazy enough to start it. So the biggest things, like I said, that you're going to risk is your time and your money. Your time is irreplaceable. So if you spend 2 or 3 years or 5 years trying to build a business and it doesn't work out, unfortunately, you can't get a refund on your time. And even though there's no amount of money, you don't have a bank account on time, well, if you're going to live till you're 80 or 90 and you spent, say, 5 years of your life, heck, that might be close to 5% of your life, 4 or 5%, a few percent of your life was invested into that business. So that's actually the biggest risk, is how much time and energy that you could put in to starting that business that you maybe could have put somewhere else. Another word for it, as we always talk about opportunity cost. If you're going into a business that you love, that doesn't make a lot of money, that's just going to be in the end a big waste of time. I mean, you might have enjoyed it during the time, but you didn't make a lot of money. But if you had gotten into another business, you could have taken that time and energy and focused on another business and made a lot of money, maybe with lower risk. I would go with option number 2. I would go with that business. And that's something that you really have to think about. So a lot of people are right now, if you're watching this video and you're an employee and you don't own a business and you've, say, been with a company for a while, the biggest transition, the biggest risk, and I know you know what I'm getting ready to say, is your paycheck, your steady paycheck. That is a risk, because when you get your own business, there is no steady paycheck. Your paycheck is determined by what you're going to create, by the sales you're able to generate. And you're going to have expenses. You're going to have monthly expenses every single month that you're going to have to pay for. So you're going to have your cost of goods, whatever you're selling is going to cost money or whatever. And so your sales, less your cost of goods, less your expenses is what you're going to make. That's your quote unquote bottom line. That's your profit. That's it. So a lot of times for most business owners, they usually say the average business takes 2 to 3 years to become profitable. And that's why a lot of times is scary for people, because people don't want to invest all of that time and energy and money to make nothing for 2 or 3 years when they're getting that steady paycheck. They're just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm just going to stop. There's no reason for me to risk opening up a business and losing my life savings and giving up my steady job, which I actually kind of like. I still like it, whatever, but at least it's paying the bills. That is for the person that's employed and not own a business owner, that's probably the biggest risk you have. Because once you burn that bridge and you go towards opening up your own business, you probably can't go back. In many cases, you can't go back. And that's, it's kind of sad. Imagine, I understand it for the other business owners, but if you've moved on and you're going to go back, the relationship will never be the same. So that's something you have to decide for yourself. And don't be fearful if you've decided that owning your own business is a dream and that you have to do that in your lifetime, that you'll never forgive yourself, that you'll be on your rocking chair in your 90s saying, gosh, I regret never having tried to start my own business in my youth. If that's on your bucket list, well, you're going to need to start it, right? You've decided that, not me. And if you go in that direction, unfortunately, you're going to have to give up that steady paycheck. And there's going to be a lot of uncomforting times during that where things are going to be tight and not easy. So make sure when you make that decision that you've built in some layers in case things don't pan out exactly the way you want them. So make sure you have several months worth of savings saved up so you can transition, or some credit with some low interest rates that if you get into a bad bind, you can maybe borrow some money at low interest. I don't recommend borrowing money unless you absolutely have to, or you have a good solid means of paying it back fairly quickly at low interest rates. That's different. It's kind of like we were talking about opportunity costs. By getting that money now, borrowing it now, you can pay it off in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. The interest rate's fairly low, so it's no big deal. And you're capable of doing that. It's not years out, like buying a car for 5 or 6 or 7 years payments or a 30-year mortgage on a house. If you can borrow that money and pay it off quickly, that's one thing. So when you get to the point where you're able to make that transition, you have to just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. That's it. Now, while the risk and the fear will set in, you've already made that decision. And I know it's not easy. If you've got that pit in your stomach, I've had it. I know what it's like, especially, if you're married or you're getting ready to get married or if you have kids. It's tough to make that leap, which is why maybe it's better to do what I've talked about on a previous video and take the time to save up for a year or 2 years to where you have a good starting amount of money to where even if it doesn't pan out, at least you don't go into debt. You're not going to owe a bunch of money. You've saved up the money and you got a shot. So really at that point, if you've saved up enough money to start the business, now your only risk is your time, right? Your time and your opportunity costs that maybe you could have been doing something else. But hey, remember this from me. You've heard this a million times. I'm not the first person to preach this. No pain, no gain. So you have to be willing to risk in order to get there. All the richest guys in the world risked it. And a lot of them risked it all, right? Look at some of the most successful people in the world that put all their chips on the line when they had to. The first couple that come to mind was Richard Branson with Virgin Airlines, his whole Virgin company. That was a huge deal when he decided to go and get into the airline industry, right? He could have lost everything that he ever worked for. Everything. But he was confident in himself and confident that if he just kept moving forward, he will succeed, and he did. He did succeed. And then you think of guys, like the actor Mel Gibson. I remember when he did Passion of the Christ, that movie. From my recollection, he put it all on the line. He invested a lot of his own money, and I don't remember, I was saying the wrong thing. Did he direct it, produce it? He did all this stuff, but he put a lot on the line to produce that movie. And so you have these people that are already stars, already rich, already famous, and they're still taking risks outside of their comfort zone. And the real reason is self-fulfillment, right? Hey, if you already accomplished everything, then what is there? If you're not growing and not creating, it almost feels like you're dying. So you have to get out of your comfort zone. That's how you grow. That's how you become something special in this world. So even the people at the top that have already made millions and millions and millions of dollars, those people are still risking. So relatively speaking, in most cases, your risk is going to be for a lot less money. And there's going to be a lot less to lose, basically. Maybe you're investing $2,000 or $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Compared to these people investing millions of dollars, it's a completely different deal. So risks are going to be there, especially when starting a business. When you're maintaining a business, they're going to be there as well. But, you're going to have to be able to, eventually when you're hiring employees, you're going to have to be able to trust your employees because there's risks that employees could steal. They could cheat on their time cards. They could end up, ultimately betraying you and learning all your secrets and becoming a competitor if you don't have a good non-compete agreement set in place. I would definitely recommend setting that up for your business and making every employee sign a non-compete agreement. For me, it makes sense. And if somebody's not willing to sign it when you're hiring them, well, why not? They're kind of giving away their cards, right? They're basically telling you that they might someday want to compete with you if they're not willing to sign it. So why are you going to teach them all your tricks? Why are you going to teach them the ropes on this business? They're going to work for you for 6 months or a couple of years, and then they're going to open up, 5 or 10 miles away from you and compete. I can't tell you how many countless stories I've heard where that's happened in every industry. And so it's definitely a real concern that you have to be careful about. So to kind of run down it, risks of starting a business, you could lose your steady paycheck. You could lose your life savings. You could lose money from, bad employees or people that ultimately might want to take you out, open up a business, compete, and ultimately run you out of business. You obviously can lose your time. And, the big one, this is the unplanned one. You never know what's coming down the pipeline is lawsuits. You could get sued for everything that you have. That is a thing that is something to do. You can buy insurance policies for certain risks, that you could potentially be sued for. But there's honestly no way to plan for every single possibility in business. It doesn't exist. There is no magic insurance pill that you can just say, I want to buy that, so if anything bad happens to me in my life, I'm covered. It doesn't work like that. And that's why insurance companies have lots of exclusions on their policies, because there's things that happen that they don't want to cover. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was very enlightening for if you're getting ready to start your business. Just know that the biggest risks up front that I think of that immediately come to mind are time and money. So until the next video, be the hustler.